Hello, welcome to the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. I'm Graham Wiley, and in this series we meet with fellow coaches, business owners, business leaders from all around the world who share with us their experience in helping develop either their own organisations or their people, or helping their clients do exactly that. It's a great privilege for me to meet these people. Many of them I don't know. Some of them are old friends and we've worked together for many, many years. Hope you find this edition interesting. Hope you find it useful and hopefully might even be a bit of fun. So this is it, the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. Hello everybody and welcome to yet another edition of the Coaching Conversation. And for me, today is a really exciting day because I'm being joined by Lorraine Cox, who is the Director of STAR Procurement and an expert in public sector procurement, and works very closely not only with other local authorities around the country, but also with private businesses and their ability to build their relationships and their businesses under public procurement. Lorraine, welcome to the Coaching Conversation.
Good morning, Graham. Thank you for the invitation.
Before we start, whilst you and I know very well what STAR do, could you just explain to the audience who STAR are and the role that you perform within STAR?
I can, of course, Graham. Firstly, people quite often think when they hear STAR procurement that we are the private sector. So the first thing I need to say out loud is we are the public sector. We are a large team that works across a number of local authorities in Greater Manchester and Liverpool City region. We are what we describe as our internal procurement team. We just happen to be the internal procurement team for 6 councils. What we do is public procurement, so the buying function for these councils, anything above the value of £25,000 will come through my team, and we look at bids, tenders, we look at quality, price and social value. So basically we are the buying function for the public sector. We also work nationally, regionally. We do outsource work for a number of other local authorities. But what we really are about, it's about how we get the public purse to be spent effectively, giving the best value for money. And what I'm really passionate about is how we get that into the local economy.
So given that STAR is the organisation that looks after public procurement for a whole raft of different local authorities, what are the sorts of products and services that you procure? What are they?
I think the short answer, Graham, is we buy absolutely everything. I did a piece of work with a group of young children in a primary school last year who wanted to know about what do mums and dads do for a living, and the children in the audience said to me, what do you buy? So I think to describe it, the biggest thing I've ever bought was Mersey Gateway Bridge. Those of you that live in the north and know the bridge, I know some of you perhaps have a view on the bridge, but we procured a £2.1 billion scheme, which was to design, build, finance and operate. So that is a 30-year contract, and you can imagine the process that we went through to procure that. And I think on the other scale, again, the example I gave to the children was I actually was involved, would you believe, in procuring some reindeers for a Christmas event. Now, I have to let you into a little secret. We actually procured donkeys because we couldn't get any real reindeers. And we had some creative people who made some antlers for us for this particular event. So if you think of the public sector, of all the services, goods and works and activities that they do, whether it's building buildings, whether it's putting people into specialist care, or whether we're buying pens and pencils, we basically buy everything that a council will need.
And so STAR itself is responsible for multi-billion procurement on an annual basis. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. We have a portfolio of contracts, as we call it, probably to the value of about £2.1 billion actually on our books across our 6 councils. So they're the 6 partners that are part of the STAR family. We obviously do other activity as well nationally, but 2.1 billion, I suppose, is my area of influence. So it sounds very grand, doesn't it?
And there is a team and a structure of STAR that effectively report to you, who are professionals and experts in each and kind of category and sector of service and product. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the way that an effective procurement team should operate is very much on something called a category basis. So basically, we split the team into three. We have contracts to do with people. So that could be outreach work for young people. It could be working with young offenders. It could be looking at services to help people with disability, setting up care homes. We have place. So clues in the name, it's where we look at the built infrastructure, facilities management type of stuff. And then we have professional, where we look at maybe bringing agency supply in for a council. It may be that they need to source specialists to come and do a piece of work, or indeed IT, and that sort of activity. So people, place and professional is the way that we categorise. And the reason we do that is you very simply think of a supermarket and think about what they do. You wouldn't have the person buying the fruit and veg, buying the dairy, because what they will be doing is looking internationally, nationally, regionally and locally about where the best value product will come from to actually put on the shelves in the supermarket. So we take the same principle, category based, and what my team are specialists in those categories.
One of the reasons for asking you to speak with us today was you mentioned public procurement, price, quality, service, and then you mentioned social value.
Yes.
I know that a lot of our audience will know the first three criteria. They'll understand the weightings and the way in which public procurement goes, but they'll be looking perhaps with cynicism, perhaps with confusion, doubt. What is social value?
Wow.
And how does it feature in public procurement?
Okay, it's a good question, Graham. I could probably spend a few days explaining this to you, so let me try and be very simplified in my answer. So if you think of social value, I think the three words that I like to use is social, economic and environmental. So if you think of those three things, what we look for in a tender submission is we obviously want a good price. We obviously want quality, tell us how you're going to do this and how you're going to do it well. But the third thing that we now add into our evaluation is looking at social value, and we actually weight the evaluation score to 20%. So this is quite significant in terms of the ask from bidders and also what we want you to put into your responses. And what we're looking for is for bidders to actually explain to us about how they operate as a business, what is their approach to social value. So as a business, how do you walk the talk? And then as a business, how are you going to add value socially, environmentally and economically? So let me translate that a little bit deeper. So the sorts of things we would want to see if we were looking at environmental issues, probably I'm going to say the easy one in terms of how I describe it, but probably not easy in terms of how you deliver. But actually, what do you do as a business to actually contribute to, the national target of let's be net zero by 2050? We've got the Greater Manchester target 2038 and Liverpool City region. The Mayor announced last year 2035. So there's a lot of focus and pressure on how we as citizens and as businesses actually help to move that environmental neutrality goal forwards. So we would want to see bidders putting in things around emissions is always the easy one that people jump to. So if your job is delivering stuff, how are you going to improve the vehicles that you use, the fuel you use, the routes that you take, and how are you going to drive environmental improvement through winning this contract? Another one to use is maybe to look at it from a social point of view and an economic point of view. But actually, how do you, by you winning that contract, how are you going to bring local employment, good employment? Are you paying the real living wage? Are you actually looking at how you invest in your workforce? Because it's okay saying, well, I'm going to create 3 jobs, but actually, are those jobs going to go to some of our most needy people in our communities, people such as care leavers who need a help and a direction to get onto a really good life plan, people who are hard to reach, long-term unemployed, people who are maybe homeless, people who are ex-offenders. So what we're wanting is not just somebody winning a contract, we want them to be employing local people, hard to reach people, making sure that they're working with other agencies to bring good support and networks for those individuals. So it's about adding value. That's what social value is for me. And more importantly is the economy. Let's talk about the economy for 1 minute. If we look at statistics about performance of local spend and SME spend, I looked at some data recently around 2023. The public purse, so the public purse across the whole of the country in 2023, only 26% of that spend went to small and medium-sized organisations.
Wow.
Don't want to get into politics here because that wouldn't be the right thing to do, but we need to do so much better. Public sector are slightly ahead at this. So we'll just pump for the public sector here in terms of local government, but we need to shift that dial significantly. And for me, part of social value brings a different approach to help smaller businesses to bid and win contracts.
I think what's interesting is that it's now become, as you've identified, 20%. It has a weighting of 20% in the selection criteria for winners of public procurement contracts.
Yes.
This is seriously important. And what you've just described would probably scare or intimidate an awful lot of SMEs who, unless they're already on a journey around ESG,
Yes.
probably would find a lot of this difficult to grasp in a practical sense.
Yes.
And without wanting just to write things down on a piece of paper that they're not serious about committing to, if they are serious about committing to them, what help can they find? Where can they go to get guidance and support to not only complete the bid, but ultimately to deliver that social value?
Yeah, again, it's a really good point, Graham. I think we're very aware that the SME sector will struggle with this concept. We do map our spend within Greater Manchester and Liverpool City region. We're highly performing in terms of keeping the spend local. I think the performance last year in Greater Manchester was somewhere around 85% that we retained the spend for our 4 Greater Manchester councils within Greater Manchester, which is, it's really good nationally. But what we need to say is that money going to small and medium enterprises, and actually how are we enabling them to be able to compete with the big boys and girls? And what we've been doing is a series of workshops. We have had a number of business events. We've been working closely with the Federation for Small Businesses, Chambers of Commerce, and actually the Growth Hub in Greater Manchester region to say, how can we help businesses to bid better? Because, this social value thing it is scary, and it's easy for me to say because I've been doing this for years. The approach we take in STAR is we use something called TOMS, Themes, Outcomes and Measures. Now, without getting into people's views on TOMS, it's the method that we've chosen to use within STAR since 2019. And basically what I would say to a small business is go and Google TOMS, have a look at it. And what it will give you as a starting point is a very long menu of what types of themes, outcomes and measures we would like to see in your bid. Now, I've actually tested this with a number of small businesses and a couple of voluntary and community organisations over recent months to say, by looking at that, what do you feel? What do you think? And immediately they have a bit of a sort of a eureka moment where they say, I now understand a little bit about what you're getting at with this thing called social value. And then I very quickly say, well, why don't you go and map what you think you do in your organisation? And dare I say, sometimes it comes back on a fag packet or a post-it note might be a better way of describing it. And sometimes they'll come back with a very long list and say, well, look at all of this that we do. So firstly, I think it's recognising what you already do. And then it's actually translating that to say, what could you do? And then it's thinking about, actually, this is lovely, but how is this actually delivering impactful social value to our communities? Because ultimately, that's what this is about. Are we changing lives by working in this way? So the next stage for businesses is then to think about using local intelligence and actually understanding their communities better through the networks that we can link you in with to actually be able to give us targeted social value. So very quick example, a small business may say, I really want to employ an apprentice. I don't know how I do it, where I go to, what training that person needs, and actually what value I can give to that person. But what we can do through our council's work is actually matchmake and help you to work with agencies who can help with matching an apprentice into your organisation, working with a local college that can help to deliver the training and support. So it's really a little bit about brokerage and matchmaking, and that's something that a couple of my councils are really quite progressive with at the moment.
This is really exciting news. If you are an SME and you really want to grow your business in the public sector,
Yes.
this is a point of difference, isn't it? You have an advantage as an SME over the big boys, don't you?
It is, Graham. I think there's always been this argument about, is there a level playing field? Because there is a view, and I agree with it, that the big boys and girls out there will probably have a room full of people writing tenders. And here you are with a small organisation, 20, 30, 40, even 100 employees. But actually, who's the procurement expert in that team? Who's the bid writing expert? And what do they know about social value and local needs? And I think what we have to do is help you to understand what we need, why we need it, in order that you can answer those questions effectively. And what we're doing is we're really targeting the spend. We have something called a threshold. And again, I don't want to get too technical, but we have a threshold value. So we look at spend below the magic figure is around about £213,000 contract values, where we look below that, because above that we're into law, and the law is about to change, which I'm sure we'll talk about shortly. But we look below that threshold and we say, how can we target this spend into our local business communities? We're just actually about to launch a new piece of work from Monday, and we've partnered with an organisation called Nomia. And what we're doing is we're looking at the low value contracts between 25k and 50k to say, how can we ring fence this to our small and medium enterprises in Greater Manchester and Liverpool City region? So basically, we've got a new portal for businesses to register. It uses AI to do that matchmake. And the questions are simple. Are you an SME? Yes. Are you in Greater Manchester or Liverpool City region? Yes. Therefore, you will be invited to bid. So that immediately reduces the pool to the targeted businesses we want to help. And at the moment, the social value element of that, because it's low value spend and we want to do things that are proportionate and relevant and keep it simple. The fact that you are local ticks the social value box. The fact that we are asking you to sign up to being a supporter of the relevant regional good employment charters is social value, because you're committing to giving good employment and good terms and conditions and good pay. And then the fact that you are a small and medium enterprise ticks what we class as a business diversity box. So our social value is coming from the nature of who you are. So that's a project we're going to launch next week, which I have to say is really, really exciting and something that will help the business communities.
It is very exciting, and there'll be a lot of people in our audience who will undoubtedly respond to this and be looking for more information, which will perhaps give answers to that a little later. You mentioned changes to the law. What is the background to public procurement now? There are changes afoot, aren't there?
Yes.
Could you summarize those?
I can, I'll try and again make this as simple as I can, because we love to make it complex in the public sector. I really apologise for that. But on the 24th of February this month, so 2 weeks' time, the government are launching the Procurement Act 2023. This in my life is the most exciting thing that could ever happen in public procurement. And some people say at this point, I really need to get a life, and they're probably right. But they're launching the PA 23, as it's called, Procurement Act 2023. And they're also going to be launching the National Procurement Policy Statement, NPPS, which is a policy document that underpins the law. Now, the very quick summary of this, Graham, there is a massive spotlight in this legislation and policy, which is about how the public person and custodians like myself and my team absolutely target SMEs, small and medium enterprises, and voluntary and community and social enterprise sector organisations. It is written hundreds of times within that legislation and within the policy. This is a have regard to, it's a you must. It used to be, please consider, please have a think about, but actually the legislation now has a big hammer to push the way that we operate in the public sector to actually target small and medium voluntary community and social enterprises. So for me, it's groundbreaking, and it will change the way that we do public procurement. Equally, another thing that comes with the Act is there is a lot of requirement around transparency. Now, this predominantly is good because it is making the public sector more visible, more accountable. It will show you, because we have to publish this, how a contract is performing, what sort of value we procured. So if we say we're going to spend £10,000 on pens and we actually spend 20, well, actually, somebody could challenge to say, well, hang on a minute, you said it was 10 and now it's 20. So it's showing you the performance, but also it's showing you the performance of the bidder as well and the winning contractor, because there will be performance indicators required. Again, I don't want to get into too much detail today, but contracts above £2 million, there are performance indicators that are required. But what it brings is a lot of transparency about opportunity, about the fact that we have to publish how the contract is performing. You will see who the winning contractor is, and you'll see how they're doing, and actually, look at that in terms of they're your competitor for when this tender next comes out. But I think the basis of the law is around simplicity, targeting the small businesses, and actually, dare I say, social value runs all the way through this law and this policy statement, particularly around jobs and good employment. It links very closely to the pillars of mission-led governance from the Labour government. And I think if you look at the spirit of those pillars, there's the first one is around, boosting the economy. I think pillar number 4 is, around young people. And the way I interpret that is, how do we get our young people, fit for work and fit to run our country in the future? So I think if you sort of have a Google moment and look at the spirit of all of that, there is a lot coming and a lot that will drive change and make the public sector do better in terms of small and medium businesses.
And it's in STAR's interest, it's in your local authority's interests to widen the pool of potential suppliers.
Yes.
So the time has never been better, has it? If you are a business looking to grow into public procurement.
Yes, yeah,
it
can never be better. I think if I'm really honest, my nervousness is, how many leaders are there out there that are going to drive this change into the public sector? I like to think STAR is unique, but there are, a number of really good councils out there that operate in a similar way to STAR, perhaps as individual organisations rather than a collaborative. But there are also sadly pockets of local government, councils that actually aren't embracing this quite as quickly as they should be. But I think the fact that this is now entrenched in law, it's very explicit. If you read the National Procurement Policy Statement, if you only read that, it's about 5 pages long. Certainly the version I looked at in draft a little while ago. It is a quick read. Get your marker pen out and you will see it oozes local, small, VCSE sector organisations. Give us good jobs, give us good employment. That's the message that's coming from government, and the law will back us up to take this approach forwards.
This is all great news, Lorraine. If anybody in the audience is looking for help, where can they go? How can they get hold of you or STAR for further support?
It's a good point, Graham. Whenever I stand speaking regionally or nationally to at various conferences and events, I always say to people, just drop me an email, and you know what, everybody in the room does, and you can imagine what my inbox is like. But very genuinely, if you drop me an email, if you drop me a message on LinkedIn, I always do my best to reply. That is my commitment to all of the businesses in the country. And you may say, well, that's very gracious because there's thousands out there, Lorraine. But actually, I have a large team. I can also network and actually introduce you to other relevant players within this space. So it may be that you just have a question to say, I'm really interested in local employment or apprenticeships, or actually targeting cohorts of people who are in long-term unemployment. It may be that you say, actually, I could do with some help on how do I present the environment part of how I put a bid in. Now, obviously, we can't write your bid for you, but we can signpost you. I can understand where you're based. It may be that you're based in Stockport and you want to do some work with community groups. So what I would ask you to do, there is a STAR website, STAR Procurement. We have a STAR LinkedIn page, and we're also on Twitter/X, whichever one you want me to call it these days. So I would say, firstly, Google STAR Procurement if you want to go into one of those generic routes. But equally, as I say, and I'm going to open the floodgates here, but Lorraine Cox at STAR, you will find me if you Google me, and please drop me a line, and I will do my best to get my team to help you. It may be a simple case of signposting to say there's a business event in your region on this date, or we know the Federation for Small Businesses are running a workshop on this subject on this date, but we're here to help. The better you are at bidding, the better better contractors I'm going to have for the public sector. So I need you and you need me, I think, is the message.
Lorraine, thank you for your time today. I think that's been fantastically useful for all of the audience, and it's been a real insight to the shift that's coming in public procurement. Lorraine, thank you.
Thank you, Graham.
That was the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. Hope it did what I promised it would do. Hope it was useful. Hope you got something out of it that you can use for yourself. And hopefully it made you smile once or twice. If you want to find out more about our coaching services, you can find the details at theexecutivemindset.co.uk. If you want to reach out to me, my name is Graham Wiley, so it's gwiley@sagegreen.com. And if you really enjoyed the programme, please take a couple of minutes and give us a Google rating. That's it. Nothing more for me to say other than see you next time. Bye.